Hey guys, Valk here. As some of you guys may or may not know, I do a series on my Twitch channel called Account Analysis, in which I do what other streamers do as a account review, but also I try to do a deep dive on the accounts that were presented to try to help players come up with, short, medium, long-term goals. And as a highlight of the series, we do a segment called Draft Analysis. And I just kind of want to bring some of the draft analysis to YouTube, since that's something I feel like we're kind of missing. So without any further ado, let's just get right into it. Like, this is where one of those games where you win because it's a build diff. Because like you have immunity on everything, he doesn't have Rimuru, right? There's no way to punish your entire roster. So this can go, you can crowd control this, and you just blast them. Very nice. First pick Ricky. Okay, so in my opinion, he's already mis-sequencing his drafts. Politis here is really early. Politis into Ricky isn't a good matchup. Politis into AOL makes it good, but Politis into Ricky is not, right? Crow, when ARavi and Bellion are both still available, is a really bad choice. So you're already overcommitting your draft. So he goes APOC here, which is a really good pick, and then he goes AOL, which is a really bad pick. LQC here is okay, but you don't have an AOL answer. Because like LQC needs to be able to cast to get value, right? And if you get silence, there's no value. So this pick needs to be reconsidered. Stenny here, however, I think is very good. And he goes Ran Ida, which I think is good. Green Violet is good response, right? I think the bottom of your draft is really fucking good, but the top of your draft is really needs work. And what I would recommend is like you figure out, out of the earlier 5 heroes I mentioned, right, the 5 strongest hero in the game right now, what can you draft that enables them and can play around them if you don't get them? And you need to draft more neutral things to open up your draft, because you don't have a consistent team comp you play with, right? You're not one of those guys that plays the same 8 units every time and it works every time, right? You're not like Joy, right? So you have to figure something out for yourself where you can be neutral and then have options and play more things. Especially you lack options because you lack supports. Playing standard is almost entirely defined by how flexible your draft can be and how you can adapt to each situations, right? And not having supports to be able to adapt to not having Lily as first pick is really, really bad. You see what I mean? Like the bottom half of your draft is really good. So I think like to open, you're going to want to take an Amelia, right? And I think like for your account in particular, if Rual ever comes back, that's a good pick for you. Although you have to be careful, Rual is not good in AoE metas, but Rual is very good in single target metas. Like right now, like instead of Crow, if you just pick up Carmen, I think your account already would just look much better. Your drafts will look a lot cleaner. Rimuru is also a decent first pick. Yeah, but it's weak to AOLs, right? And he doesn't have enough supports to let him pick that, right? So this is another problem that'd be solved if he had more. Even if he just had like a one between Mate Chloe or Ricky, it would really open this account up. But as it is, if you just build a very high res Amelia to try to combat that a little bit alongside of Crimson Armin, I think this account will be in a better spot. Okay, moving on. Rimuru, first pick. Okay. AOL Lilius. Okay, wait, hold on. Lilius. First pick, Bans AOL. So this is actually a really good habit, and this is something I want to highlight, right? Which is your pre-bans are very consistent. You're not changing up your pre-bans on a whim, right? How I want to describe this for people who haven't heard this like spiel before is that your pre-bans determine what type of playstyle you're playing and what units you have available, right? Essentially, if I pre-ban AOL, that just means I'm playing a game where AOL does not exist, right? And I think like in your case, it's fine, but not pre-banning Lilius when you have a Lilius feels really bad. And I understand Lilius is very strong right now, and until Para comes out, she has no hard checks, right? But I would even argue lulling the enemy into a false sense of security, making him think you're drafting against Lilius and then banning the Lilius is a really strong draft in and of itself. They rely on the Lilius to open up options for their playstyle, right? And you just take out the Lilius, you force them to play everything else, right? Make a habit and learn a draft where you're pre-banning the same thing every time. Vasta, my biggest advice for you would be to learn and to start building text, right? Take like Amelia Carmen. It's not the best like combo in the world, but I think for champ it's more than enough, right? And if that's your goal, I think you can easily do that. right? High res Amelia, maybe not the fastest. Make her decently bulky. She's gonna be very bulky next to a Carmen, and you wouldn't have to ban Lilius ever. Yeah, changing your pre-bans changes the game too much, right? You're like, there's entire playstyles defined by what gets pre-banned, right? Think about it this way. Like, Stenny was one of the worst heroes in the game. And then I basically copied my guildmate Bendor's playstyle. I put a really high damage Stenny on Book, right? I don't have to worry about Bellion. I pre-ban Bellion every time, right? Even if I'm playing standard or I'm playing a slightly slower playstyle, I can just rely on Stenny. It definitely has a huge domino effect. Yeah, Bellion makes it so you can play Stenny again. You can play Book heroes again, right? You can play combos again. It enables a lot of things. Bellion basically killed a lot of creativities when it comes to team building, right? And I really like being able to pre-ban Bellion in order to just open things up. This is actually a really good habit. I think the one thing you just need to fix is the fact that banning a hero you don't have when you don't have like so much options to you is kind of counterproductive, right? Because you don't know if Jojok doesn't have a Lilius, or I guess in this case, right? You don't know if Mr. Korea Man doesn't have a Lilius, right? Maybe he doesn't have a Lilius. Maybe a Lilius here will actually hurt you. You're never sure. And I think in your case, I think early pick Rimuru is okay. I would not early pick Crow. Or Crow is not considered a neutral knight right now. If you need a good knight early, that would be Crimson Armin. That would be FCC, right? And even early picking FCC has this risk. You look at specifically my playstyle. If somebody picks an early FCC against me, what do I say? I'm like, wow, I get to play Optic for free here, right? Every time. So yeah, getting yourself more options, getting yourself a Carmen, getting yourself an Amelia is already going to open up your options. Getting your Poly to do more damage, I think will help you a lot as well. So I think in this particular case, Rimu, this Violet, Poly, I would say is okay here, and Crow feels a little bad. You never want to early commit a Crow now. Early committing Crow does not feel good. And it goes SSB Carrot, right? So this is actually a pretty good draft from the right side, because like now he has 1 DPS of every flavor. Now it's like your move. Landy Stenny. I think committing a Landy onto a Carrot feels really bad. If I had to guess, you pick Landy Stenny planning on banning the Carrot, and then he last picked another DPS into you, right? That's what I would guess happened. So if that's the case, then it's not gonna feel good. So in this case, I would, if you had a Rem here, right, how crazy would that have been? So again, this is like your draft being limited by what you didn't have built. Okay. This is with the Lilius first pick and we lost. Okay, first pick. 1, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, Judge Kisaban. I think a Rimuru here is pretty okay. What does a Politis do here? Your Politis is tanky, right? Not that much damage, high effectiveness on Violin, which generally speaks to me like you're looking to strip buffs and you're looking to just be an annoyance. 1, this team has buffs, but not that high quality buffs. And 2, you don't really do enough damage to threaten these like highly bulk units. Right, as a debuffer, that's fine. Right? But here's the thing. What are debuffs generally called, right? Debuffs are generally called crowd control. Debuffs are used to control the enemy's options when they take their turn. You stun them and they can't move. You silence them and they can't cast skills, right? So in this case, if they don't have a way to activate you, and assuming all of these are either some type of immunity, obviously him not having a cleanse option is like not good for a blind. But if he doesn't draft anything to activate your Politis doesn't really get a debuff anything. So this Politis here makes it really awkward for you. Like, sure, you get to choke out some things, but you're not really making use of this Politis. Stenny is really good here because now like you're lacking reach, right? And APOC. And APOC's one of the heroes that are so strong in this meta, you kind of need to expect her at all turns if she's not drafted. Wasn't the best unit with Rimuru. Yep. I'm glad you recognize that. Things that remove buffs, really bad when you pick them with Rimuru. Okay, so you go Landy here, which I think is it feels kind of bad into Bellion and LQC. So he goes Judge last, and you have to ban the Judge, because if this was a fast Judge that can reset, you're done. Right, he bans your only support, and then you have no buffs, the game just gets put away. You have no ways to support a LQC and your Landy. Right, Rimuru really only is valued as a support if the enemy has a lot of high value buffs. Yeah, LQC with no attack up, basically cannot kill an APOC Ravi. Like, reasonably speaking, on even gear, shouldn't be able to kill an APOC Ravi behind mitigation. Yeah, I think in this case, so far in these drafts, there's a few things I identified. One is like, you kind of lack neutral options and you don't know how to identify which options are neutral. So to recap that, one, that's heroes that don't have a clear hard counter. And two, it's a hero that can play into any other playstyle, right? You could flex them into 2 or 3 different genres of drafts, and you need to open with those. And I think in your case, if you have such a neutral Stenny, you should probably pick your Stenny more. And then the other one is like, a lot of times you're limited by your options. You kind of have to slam Crowd because you didn't have Carmen built. You have to slam Rimuru because you don't have Amelia built. I mean, I don't really think it matters too much. There's just no good buffs to steal here. At most, you steal Bellion's defense buff. But like, a defense buff is nothing against a Bellion, right? She Elbrises one time and that shit is gonna get stripped right away. No, slamming Rimuru is fine. Slamming Rimuru is good if you have other supports. Slamming Rimuru is fine if you have good supports or if the opponent has good supports. Slamming Rimuru is not fine if he's going to be the only support on the field. And I think it's already established. Rimuru is not a carry. Rimuru is a support DPS. So I think so far to me, it looks like the opponent, right, has a very consistent draft that follows like good draft logic. You'll usually have a pretty tough time. But if the enemy is just kind of like trucking along and just slamming whatever, then you'll manage fine. And I think like if your goal is just to hit champ, right, that's perfectly fine. If you just grind it out enough games, I think it's doable, right? But as is, I think the easiest way for you to improve your drafts is to build options so you no longer have to pre-ban your own units. That is one thing. Two, you don't have to early commit things like Crow. You can start committing Carmens. And then after that, it's just like, you just play more games. Yeah, I think like most players put in enough time and just work, right, to enable their account. Most accounts can hit champ. Right, it's just a matter of how much time you put in and how much time you want to put in, right? That's all there is to it. That being said, that would be the draft analysis I have for your drafts, man. Overall, I would say... Alright guys, that would be the first episode of Draft Review. Let me know if you have some tips for the drafts or for the video. If you enjoyed, be sure to leave a like and subscribe. That will really help me out, and I'll keep on making these. With that being said, hope you guys have a great one, and I'll see you guys in the next one. See ya.